In this video, you will see American Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura create and exploit pawn weaknesses to gain a winning position. In this game, I'm going to be showing you how American Super Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura creates pawn weaknesses and exploits them during a game. The simple formula for attacking pawn weaknesses is after it is created to keep the pawn from um, advancing and eliminating the weakness, and then to put pressure on it with your pieces, especially your heavy pieces like the rooks. And we're going to see a classic example of that in this game. Okay, Nakamura is playing white and Al Modiaki is playing black. And so let's get started here. Black plays f5 and white captures it en passant. And this creates the pawn weakness. After queen takes f6, we see here that the e6 pawn is no longer protected by any pawns, and there's also a half open e file for which white can conduct his attack. Rook d to e1, simply preparing the attack. Knight to e7, knight to g1. Here, the knight is going to go to f3 in order to restrain e5. Bishop to d7, protecting e6. Knight g to f3, queen to f7, queen to b3. So here we could start to see the pressure building. And over the next few moves, Nakamura is just going to simply continue to build the pressure. Black cannot do anything in terms of getting rid of this weakness. If he tried to block by advancing this pawn, it would just exemplify this weakness. He can't advance this e pawn because there's too many pieces covering this square, and actually right now it's pinned anyway, but black would simply lose a pawn. Rook h to e8, bringing some defense to the pawn. Rook to e2, planning to double pawns. Queen to g8, bishop to c4. And we can see now almost all of white's pieces are aiming or participating in this operation. Knight to d5, opening the rook to defend. Rook f to e1. Now we've got the doubled rooks on the e file. b6. And here, black creates a weakness in his camp on the light squares, and Nakamura sharply will take advantage of that to create even more pawn weaknesses. Bishop to a6 check, king to b8, bishop to b5. And here, white is trying to now exchange the defender of this weak pawn. So all of the long-term strategy by Nakamura is really aimed at exploiting the pawn weakness created when he took on f6 en passant. c6, and again, this is great. White simply provokes another weakening move with c6, and now the d6 pawn is weak. And let's see what happens here. Bishop to d3, again, attacking another hanging pawn. Nakamura must have seen far here and strategically taking advantage of all of the weaknesses that his opponent is giving him. g5, getting rid of the weakness and looking at a tactic here in order to avoid losing a pawn. With after f takes g5, h takes g5, knight takes g5, black has bishop to d4, which uncovers this attack on the knight. Now, it would be a mistake for white to capture here because now white has his own weakness with the isolated pawn, and now black's pieces may get a little more activity, although I still think that white probably still has an advantage. So instead, going back, he just retreated to e4, attacking that d6 pawn. Bishop to e5, protecting the pawn, and now knight c4, attacking the pawn twice. Bishop to c8, allowing the rook to defend, and now Nakamura shifts the weakness onto e5. Knight takes e5, d takes e5, and now we see he's got double isolated pawns, which in general are not very good. queen to c2, rook to e7, king to b1, just keeping out of any trouble here with any potential checks, for example, by the queen. Rook e to d7. Black is a master also, so he's trying to create some counterplay down the open d file. Bishop to c4, queen to g6, knight to f2. Offering exchange of queens, which would lead to probably a very easy endgame. But black tries to create some counterplay, attacking the h2 pawn, and white should not be in a hurry to capture this pawn here on e5 because it's going to stay there, and so he simply plays knight d3 so that we can have some defense to the h2 pawn. Black advances his pawn so that it will be captured in the most advantageous way, avoiding potential captures on e5 by the knight that would attack the rook on d7, for example. And here, white wins a pawn and has a decisive advantage in the game with a weak pawn on e6 remaining, as well as two connected pass pawns on the king side. White should have won this game. Unfortunately, he drew it. Perhaps he was in time trouble, I'm not sure, but it's a shame because I thought the way he built up his attack on the pawn weaknesses for black was just very well executed, as you would expect from America's best player. Just to sum up the highlights of this game, Nakamura was able to take advantage of an opportunity to create a weak pawn on e6, and then using the principles of preventing it from advancing, restraining it, and then building up pressure on it, he was able to actually not really win the pawn right away, but actually create other weaknesses in his opponent's camp as his opponent tries to get counterplay and tries to defend the pawn. So the priorities shifted, but it was all created by that initial pawn weakness and by the systematic and elegant buildup of pressure on that weak pawn. So I found the position very instructive, and I hope you did as well. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to get updates to new videos. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and visit www.betterchesstraining.com for articles to improve your chess. Also, check out my interview with International Master Krzysztof Zielecki from Chess Explained. He gave us a lot of advice on how to improve at chess, and it was a ton of fun.